All right, just waiting to give this thing a few seconds, make sure it's working. I've been very busy, distracted, but I just wanted to give another chapter in my little vlog to myself about my certified Cicerone adventure. It's been a long year, just about over a year actually, of studying. And finally, the written exam has come and gone. And I just want to kind of talk about my experience and some of my strategy in the last couple months and leading up to it and what I was doing to finish up in this adventure. So I put a list here of kind of all the resources I've used in the past year. And so specifically for the written exam, which is the online written exam, lots of questions and stuff like that. It's not the tasting exam, which is totally separate. What did I do? So in the beginning, a, a year ago, maybe a little more, I was reading books. That's how I got started. I wanted to do the general tiptoe in, read books about the general knowledge of, the Cicerone adventure, the beer history, the beer styles, all the stuff out there. And I started with Randy Mosher's Tasting Beer. And that's like the first book I read. So I would say in how effective it was for me in the written exam, Tasting Beer was a good introduction of all the different topic areas, like a little bit of brewing process, a lot of history, a lot of the different styles from each country, talking about a lot of the things that are good to know about them. And it was pretty good to get a light level general knowledge in all the areas, I would say. And followed by that, then I read Brewmaster's Table, which to me is a really good primer for like getting familiar with. Again, it talks about the beer styles in every country and all that stuff too, but more with a focus on beer food pairings and why they go together, the different strengths of beering, complementing, contrasting, matching strengths and intensities and all that, getting you really familiar with those concepts and having fun learning a little bit more also about the different styles of beers from all the different countries. So it was a good read also. The draft beer quality manual was essential obviously for things in all things of beer delivery, beer storage, um, clean beer lines, all the things involved in making sure a venue can successfully serve beer without compromising on quality, which is actually why the Cicerone program started to exist in the first place. It was because quality wasn't being maintained at the service side. That's actually why this whole certification sort of existed in the first place. Now, in paired with those things, I was using the BJCP 2021 version of the guidelines from start to finish. I would say out of all the reading, this is the one thing that I think touches most on a lot of the details you need to know. Obviously, the beer styles, the countries they're from, not just history of them, like some history of each of them. It doesn't go that deep, but it gives you some nice, interesting tidbits that you should probably have in your brain somewhere. But also, not just the ingredients, too, and the history of the ingredients, why they were used, and what the ratios are, and the different malts. Really insightful. But obviously, the qualitative, quantitative specs of them are in there, all the beers. So you got to sort of know those things. But more specifically, the aroma, flavor, mouthfeel, and attributes, the qualitative experience of these beer styles. This is essential. And I would say out of all the reading, that's probably the number one thing, aside from draft beer quality manual, that you really need out of those first four, right? To me, that's the essential one. Um, and then right underneath this, probably the most impactful resource that I was using that was purchased, like books are purchased or downloaded, right, was the Beer Scholar by Chris Cohen. The latest version he just came out with a few months ago, I think it was November, right before Thanksgiving. He came out with this latest release, which was a refresh of what he's been doing for years. This was top beneficial resource of all the things I used as far as zeroing in on not just the topic areas, because you could read the syllabus, you can try to read the BJCP guidelines forever, but there's so much knowledge, knowing sort of what to prioritize in like retaining and being familiar with. I think his training went so deep into all these things, and also in other things that I didn't mention here. Like I didn't have a book for cask cellarmanship, right? But he has a lot of information on things like that. Also dives deep into the beer food pairings. I would say more targeted than saying trying to read Brewmaster's Table and just going away with it. You totally need to have a more honed focus on kind of being familiar with beer food pairings, getting to know the ingredients that are used in foods, the common cooking methods, and then comparing this to beer styles of different intensities of in all different directions. That was really helped calibrate my focus. So that thing was immensely useful. And I spent 2 to 3 months using that resource in parallel to revisiting BGCP guidelines and stuff. So very helpful, honestly. I can't recommend it enough. Um, just Google Beer Scholar, you're gonna find it. Very useful. In addition to that, I had other resources. Like in the beginning, I was thinking I'm gonna make my own flashcards, and I started doing that, and I actually made some, a whole bunch. I printed some, I wrote some, but also I purchased this Cicerone orgs flashcards. To be honest, they're light level. They're not that deep, but they give you the basic specs that you can be benefiting from, specifically the ABV, the SRML, some stuff that sometimes a little history, not that deep knowledge, but they're very useful because you can just lay them out on your table on the floor and start ordering them in the way that you find easy to memorize. So I use those a lot towards the end, the last month, to force rank all the beers for each region into their own little bundles that I rubber banded separately and force rank them by ABV. That's what I did to get to start remembering the ladders of all the beer styles. Because, when you start having the different bitters. Okay, the Scotch ales in the right order, and then you're looking at even the Belgian ales in the right strength. It helped me really start remembering not just ABVs, but other stuff about the styles when I started thinking them in the ladders. And I honestly think that was what the second most beneficial thing for me to do was that towards the end it really helped me nail in a lot of the stuff that I wasn't having trouble memorizing because I'm not good at memorizing ABV, SRM specs, and all this stuff. But when I had them visual and in order, I was doing that every couple of days, laying them out. Very helpful. I would highly suggest getting those or making your own, but there is convenient. You buy theirs. There's 2 packs. You reorganize them all yourself so you have the complete index of each country. Lay them out in order, and every time you're having a beer, just look at it, and it really was helpful. Throughout the year, I also use SharePoint, Microsoft products, because that's what I do all day in technology, right? I use SharePoint to make lists of stuff. So I would take all the BJCP commercial examples and I put them into a massive long list. Then I can like kind of group it by style, by region, by strength, all this stuff. I did that both for the styles and for the examples. I made 2 separate lists, and that was pretty handy, color coding the stuff and whatever. But then I would take that list and then copy paste it into Outlook and put it as a daily calendar reminder, all the commercial examples A to Z. So every time I went to the beer market, I could just pull it up and say, oh, which one's on my shopping list? Which one do I got to get? And whenever I tried a style, I would eliminate those ones. Then I knew which ones I still haven't tried. Eliminated by style. So at least if I had one Belgian blonde, whatever, I would eliminate them all from my shopping list. And over months, I was trying to find the remaining hard to get beers, right? So that was really useful in helping me with the next thing, which I say commercial examples tasting. That I was doing all year. That's like the first step I did in studying once I got reign of, the BJCP guidelines and tasting new beers, looking at the BJCP guidelines while you're drinking them, and just starting to absorb some knowledge, but getting familiar with the flavor profiles, the strength, and if you like it or not, all the mouthfeel over several months. That is probably the most fun part of the studying, just trying new beer, learning a little bit about them. Like, oh, okay, while I'm having this beer that I've never had before, oh, let me read about the history of it. That's kind of a very good thing you should be doing in preparation for the written exam, I would say. And also I write off flavor kits here. That was just in preparation for the tasting exam, but I started that training before I had even finished the written exam. Because you're tasting beer, at some point you got to start knowing how to critique beer, right? Is it suitable for service? Does it have an off flavor from the brewing process, whatever? But at the end of the day, I did really good. I was impressed. I actually didn't know if I was going to do this good. I took the written. Oh yeah, so I should talk about the day of the test. So it's online. You register a while ahead of time, a week before. You do a dry run. You make sure your computer's ready, that the software loads. Um, and again, it's a pretty significant chunk of time you want to reserve, like 2 to 3 hours. You should book 3 hours on your calendar just so you have no interruptions. But did the test, stepped away from my computer feeling good but not certain. I was like, yeah, there's a few things I got wrong, and oh, I hope I did okay, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, I was very happy with this result. I got a 96% overall score on the exam, and you need an 80 to pass for the written. And so I did really good. I was really relieved when I got that because I was like, oh my goodness, just pass by a little. You know, how comfortable am I going to be? And this worked out really good for myself. I mean, out of all the topics, all 5 areas, I got a 90 or above, which has made me feel confident, right, in that stuff. So in that, I got keeping and serving 98, beer styles 95, beer flavor and evaluation 97, and surprisingly, ingredients and process 92, my lowest of the 5, and I do homebrewing. So I thought I really had that nailed, but again, you never know how the questions are weighted and stuff. And then beer and food pairing really was able to deliver on that one, 96. So the written exam, which is only half of it, right? Nailed it. In my opinion, I was very relieved. And I, again, would like to say, Chris Cohen, your material really zeroed me in on efficiency of spending my time and effort in those last 3 months. Worked out really good. But then, yeah, the tasting exam's a whole nother story. I got to put another video on that. I did take it. I'll talk about that in the next video. But yeah, I want to keep this video log journey going. It's been a real fun thing. The other thing I like to point out is it's not only about the test and the results. In the process, there's networking. You start maybe meeting people in person, but if not in person, online. In the social media world, there's so many people that are also studying for this and other Cicerone exams. And then you start to follow their journey, and then you guys have a little overlap. So you're almost getting to know these people and taking mental notes when you see what they're doing, which I should put as another line item here. Following your peers, right? And emulating what they're doing, such as beer tastings at home, whatever breweries they visit, their mentality of when they're tasting a beer, what kind of notes they're taking to force the vocabulary to build up in your mind, right? So there's a lot of other stuff. I could go on forever, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stop it here, and then I will be back soon to talk about the tasting exam. But yeah, thanks for watching.